For the past week, I've been getting a lot of love from our episode the prior week about IRS crypto. Obviously, this affects a lot of people. We have next week to get the word out, and then after that, the comment period ends.
Is the cutoff date for that, remind me, is that at the end of October?
Yes, October 30. They snuck it in right before the end. Yeah, so comments are due October 30. I'm not sure, maybe it's the end of the day or the middle of the day. So I've published a blog post about this. I got all my comments are public, so let me drop this into the show notes. I've got 26 pages of comments and read it slowly or just wait for the YouTube shorts to come out. And this hit. And so this, I'm not getting deluged with a bunch of crap. This just showed right up. I was like, oh, one hit. And I'm like, oh, this is huge. This is the mother lode. Aside from laws and taxes and reporting and all that, what else is good?
Personally, I've been looking at the type juggling optimization we talked about a while back. I've been just working on that.
We're talking about storage bit stuffing?
Yeah, exactly. Rearranging like the definitions so that it could fit more data per slot.
I think it's nice to document a couple of these tricks. So one of them is the signature. So this is something that takes 32 bytes plus 32 bytes plus 1 byte, and it gets it into 64 bytes. So this is something you want to use for public key signatures. The other one is you want to, it's the, what we call it, bit stuffing. That'll be like 48 bits for your timestamp plus dot 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 plus dot 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 equals 256 bits. Just, you got to make sure that, that you put them in the correct order. And this is actually something I went to the Solidity team. The order of the storage matters. And especially you want to order them so that basically whenever you go over 256, it hits a new line. It's a hard wrap. It works exactly like a text editor, right? You got words and then stuff, and then it comes over and then it starts over a new line, just like that, right? So then you've got something else. It works exactly, it visualizes exactly the way that I'm showing you. And then you got a really big one like this. So this is fine. What I've shown you here is a big thing and then 3 little things and then a big thing. So this would represent 3 different slots. But if you did it in this order, then the little thing wrapped over to a new line, which is unnecessary. Now you've got 4 slots. Typically, you would want to pull this thing back and put it up here. And so the way you just do that is you just change the order, just like I just did here. It works exactly like a text editor. I actually went to the Solidity team and I said, this behavior, this trick, everybody's optimizing for this. And it's actually not specified behavior. And I said, can you confirm to me that this will never change? You know, this would be considered a breaking change if Solidity ever did that. And they say, yes. I'm like, okay, great. Well, we need to document that. That needs to be part of the documentation that this is not going to change. And they said, yeah. So I wrote that, we merged it in. And so this is actually part of the spec. And it's important because 037 is here trying to make all of his bits fit into slots and doesn't want to get double slotted when he's trying to pull this stuff out. And I'm assuming you're working on mainnet?
No, I'm working on a Gorley right now, but I guess the issue I have is, I don't know about you, but like when you code your smart contracts, do you just know all this on the top of your head, or do you have like a special VS Code extension that just warns you against like these definitions? Because I wish there was an extension for that. That would make my life easy. I refer to like a bunch of blog posts that just show you how to optimize properly, and I just take for granted their examples, and you know, I try to apply them to my own code. I guess also visualizing the slots, that would help. I want to say in Remix you could kind of step through it to get an idea, but it's way too complicated. Personally, I can't operate at a low level like that anyway.
You're right. There is an opportunity to make a visualizer for this stuff. You're right. I don't immediately see how an easy tool would do this. But the answer to your question is no, I keep that in my head. So there's a few things that I keep in my head. The way the slots work, critical, because especially for Ethereum mainnet, which is so darn expensive, every time you hit a slot is expensive. In fact, that is the main expense for smart contracts. And it used to be that reading was a lot cheaper. It's not. So reading and writing slots is expensive. That's probably the number 1 optimization that I keep in my head. Number 2 is for loops or anything like that. You want to make sure they're bounded, and then number 3 is reentrancy, recognizing any potential path that people can get through your code. I don't really see a good tool chain for that, but you need to imagine all the possible ways that somebody can come in and come out. And that makes you consider if you need to have locking, which is a last resort, or you need to more likely just tighten up access control for any one of your functions. I think those are the main considerations. Slots, loops, and reentrancy. Those 3 classes of optimizations are also responsible for all kinds of exploits too, right? So the reentrancy consideration there leads to the withdrawal pattern is the way you're supposed to remove ether from a contract. It's also the reason we probably should have not had safe transfer from in NFTs or 1155 or anywhere else it is. Probably should have never done that. That's a general reentrancy. That's a general security vulnerability that now each implementation needs to think about. That was probably poor design on my part.
I can't remember the name of it. There was a linter I was using that would warn against reentry, but I felt like it was giving me a lot of false positives here and there.
Anything that can have code going out can be reentrant. Anything that can be one function that calls another function, anything that can be like a recursive function is not reentrant, but I guess meets the spirit of reentrant, things you would check for. Are you using Solent or something else?
Speaking of reentrancy, I was thinking, this kind of falls under the same classification. There is a part in my smart contract that I do allow others to put in a smart contract address and then call an interface that is assumed on the smart contract that you're executing against. I guess this is a case-by-case thing, but have you ever seen other smart contracts do that? Like you have an interface for what a remote smart contract looks like. Okay. And
yeah. That's how marketplaces work for NFTs.
That's pretty much what I'm doing. I personally wasn't able to find that many examples, at least the way I was doing it. And I was curious how open to abuse something like that could be. Because, the interface just shows you, or I guess you define just the function names, and then the return values. And then, of course, you could do whatever with those return values. My fear is like that remote smart contract maybe returns something that one of my requires doesn't catch. This kind of goes back to a previous talk we had with like fuzzing.
Yep. Well, I have a specific one for you. Evil owner of. So this is a really specific type of attack. We had an episode about this, 27. And this was where we actually looked at smart contracts. We went deep into it. This was a longer episode because we were dropping a 0 day, but then we were trying to see if this hurts anybody, like important or in production. And so we were going through a bunch of them and that was a fun episode. But at the end of the day, the problem was we had a smart contract. We were a marketplace, just like you're saying. And we were assuming we're going to connect to an NFT. And we were assuming that NFT had this function called owner of. And we were assuming that owner of wouldn't call back into us, reentrancy, because owner of normally doesn't do that. However, we created an evil NFT smart contract that did call back into the marketplace. Basically, the marketplace was like, who owns this NFT? And then it's going to transfer the NFT. And then it's going to see who owns it when it's done to make sure that it was successfully transferred, right? That's how it works. But the problem was the target NFT was doing something like this. Before this whole thing started, the price was 1. And then it says, who's the owner? And then it says, the owner's me. And then it goes back and it changes the price to 20. And then the marketplace continues. It says, what is the price? 20. Pays the 20. And then it says, who's the owner? And then it says, oh, the owner was successfully transferred. It changes the price back to 1. And so the end result was, it was sold for a price of 1, but it was actually transferring 20.
There was a similar vulnerability in the smart contract I was working on, and it was kind of 2 levels to it. So one was at the smart contract level. One was also like a desynchronization on the front end level. Someone has a page loaded, and the NFT might be one price, and then behind the scenes, the price changes, but then the front end still has like that old price. The way I solved for it, and I'm curious if this is a good way to do it, is like for price specifically, if someone wanted to, let's say, do like a buy of some sort, you have to include the price in the actual function call. And that's the price that it checks against. And if there's a mismatch, then it ends it right at the beginning.
Yes, so you absolutely need to do that. You cannot have a smart contract where you just click pay unless, so there's 2 ways you do it. I have an example of this. It's the first episode, area contract review. This is actually a marketplace. So there's like I said, there's 2 ways. One is the buyer can include that price that they are willing to pay in the call to the smart contract. That's if they're going to be using ERC20. Number 2 is if they're paying with Ether, then they just pay that amount of Ether in the function call, and then it either gets rejected or accepted at that price. There's a broader classification of what you're calling, and this is called slippage. This is also, there's another thing that this is related to. I love just saying how things are related because you have a question, but you have a broader concept that you want to understand, right? This was on the TikTok from Wendy O. If you pull up Wendy O on TikTok, you'll see that one of the pinned videos, the one right at the top, it says, do this to make sure you don't lose all your money. She says, never use market orders, always use limit orders. And this applies to stocks, thinly traded NFTs, thinly traded fungible tokens, NFTs, anything. And so what happens is when you place a market order, you're going to get whatever price is there at the time that your order actually settles, not at the time that you're looking at it. And if you're trading Apple stock, not a big deal. If you're going to do a market order for Apple stock and you're looking at a price of 100 and an order goes through, you might get a worse price. You might get a price of 100.0001 because you're not moving the market unless you're a hedge fund. But if you're going to buy anything in crypto, then A, your little tiny order of 1 might move the market. And 2, you could just get front run, which is even worse. You can get sandwiched. And the way you avoid sandwiching and thin liquidity, you do a limit order every time. So that's in DeFi, we call this controlling slippage. In TradFi, we call this limit orders.
Yeah, I've definitely heard the term slippage before. You see it in MetaMask all the time, like when you try to make some sort of transaction. Yeah, this for at least my market smart contract, it went beyond the cost even, because I also do like things like percentages for like commission and stuff like that. All these concepts really, like you have to kind of glue them with you as you code all the subroutines.
You're right, because these are concepts. I will answer your question. I will literally answer your question. I will audit your code. I will give you recommendations. But more importantly, I will set you on fire, right? Keep you warm for the rest of your life. So these are the things you need to know that apply in any concept, because I could fix it for you. I could give the answer, but then you change a thing and then it doesn't apply anymore. These concepts need to apply for whichever path is possible to go through your product. And so just one possible implementation here would be like buy, and then it would be token ID, and then it would be price. And this would be for a ERC20 order, or it would be buy token ID for an ETH order, something like that. Those are the very basic concepts. But maybe you're going to not do a buy. Maybe you're going to do something where it's like a multi-buy or like an order, but it doesn't go through right away. There's all these things. But the general concept is you want to watch out for sandwiching and front running.
Yeah, these are essentially the basic concepts. I have implemented most of them already, and I've patched them to the best of my ability. And at this time, I'm just doing the optimizations for it so that there's the least amount of gas possible per function call. But I always revisit like these concepts. Maybe something changed, like you said. Just a personal question, and this is kind of unrelated to this. Have you ever considered having a pen test service for smart contracts? Because I feel like you in particular, you just know a lot about the security aspect of this. It would make sense if you did have a service like that.
I do, and I do this. I don't plug myself all the time. But since you asked, here's my homepage. So please see this page under code reviews. Luckily, a lot of the pen testing that I do is public, which is my portfolio. So a lot of the stuff I work on is just, you can see it right here. I don't tell other people that it's here, but it's here. For you, just click on all 4 of these, click on all the top ones here, and then just read this. When a client hires me and they're going to pay me, pen tests cost a lot. That's like the most money I make in crypto doing a pen test. And I'm like, okay, you didn't even take the time to look at my homepage. Like you could have got at least half of this for free. You could have just looked at this and not paid me and just did half of this yourself. And maybe not the number 1 or 2 thing, but the number 3 thing is like have test cases. That's an immediate fail for a pen test. You don't have a test case because penetration. What is a penetration? If you don't define what are the front holes and the back holes, then every hole is a back hole. So that's part of test cases and documentation. So yes, I do. Thank you. I do pen tests, and I'm giving you 70% of your pen testing for free here.
Thank you for that.
And I'll help you with the other 30% too when you're ready, for sure.
I appreciate it. Fantastic.
Don't worry so much about the optimization. I know there's great resources. There's a guy named Frank. You'll find him. If you start going on Twitter, if you go on X hard enough looking for optimization with Solidity, you're going to come across Frank. He's got an excellent list of tricks. Don't use them. Study them. You can use them, but if you're already worried about that type of stuff, then worry about that after you've gone through at least your first functional audit. Make sure all your features work before you optimize. Premature optimization is the root of all evil.
Is the root of all evil.
That's the quote for programmers.
Is it because it raises the complexity after the fact?
It raises complexity, it distracts, and it ossifies.
I found more irrelevant quotes. Every time I paint a portrait, I lose a friend from Picasso. And Da Vinci wrote, if you find from your own experience that something is a mistake and it leads you to change your idea, don't be afraid to change.
All right, so basically the quote is saying that if you start painting and you're painting a face and the eye's a little bit in the wrong spot, you just better throw this damn thing away. Because when you just try to like move the eye and then you move the other thing, you're going to spend so much time moving these little things that you're going to lose track of the big picture, and it's going to distract you from the fact that your painting sucks. That's the quote. And this is related a little bit, is because when you start optimizing, that puts in your heart the feeling that it is no longer your responsibility to work with the features. You're kind of admitting to yourself that the features are done and the thing works perfectly, and now the only remaining problem is the economy of the product. Emotionally, this is a problem for the entrepreneur because the entrepreneur is never done building the product. It's specifically bad for a solopreneur. to be working on optimization anytime before you're almost ready to launch. It's just rough. I've been there, man. I've been there. It's like, you make the thing and you don't launch, and then you're like, oh, I'll start doing this shit that doesn't matter.
That doesn't matter.
And then you're like, okay. And then you do that, and then the bigger thing comes up. It's like, oh, should I change this? Should I add this new feature? And then part of your brain is like, well, I already discounted adding new features because I told myself I was done.
I was done with it anyway.
Keeping yourself out of sad places and dark corners is also part of the mysticism of being able to create.
There's a lot of truth in what you just said. I mean, I am guilty of what you just described. I always have a launch date, and then I come up with like these features, and then I'm like, hey, you know what? Let's push the launch date. These features are pretty cool to have, and then I fall in this cycle for an endless eternity.
A lot of times launching is super important, more important than having a good product. Steve Jobs also says related, real artists ship. Yeah, I was working on T-Bone. There's a million things I wanted to add, and I said, what's more important than any of this is using it right now, because I actually need to use T-Bone. It's out. It does about 40% of what I wanted to, and it does that 40%, 120% great. And I use it all the time. I never went into marketing, and honestly, I don't care about marketing it. I use it all the time. It's great. Now I come under a little bit of optimization. And the last thing I did was just remove. I'm just removing part of the product that should have never been there in the first place. It feels great to have the product done, and luckily web apps are a little different than smart contracts just because you can change them. But depending on how you build, if you build your website first or whatever, that is another way that you can build your product. So for the smart contract stuff, it's also really important to make a product. Sometimes people are like, they say, I want to make a Web3 thing. Okay, great. Why? I want to be rich. Okay. How is this Web3 thing going to make you rich? Well, I'm going to make it and people are going to use it and they're going to pay me. Okay, stop. That's a hypothesis. I can test that cheaper. How? Great. Make the web page and don't make the product. Just make the web page and put a button there that is the call to action. See if anybody clicks that button. Great way to launch products. And I tell them, and they say, okay, your hypothesis is you're going to make this thing, you're going to get rich. Okay, but if I can prove to you that that's wrong, will you be happy? Will that save you time? They say, I won't be happy, but it will save me time, so I'm happy. Okay, great. I said, well, here's a way, without hiring me or hiring anybody, you can answer that question. This is also called test-driven development. WordPress also uses this. They write the blog post, and then they go build the product, which is great, because if your blog post doesn't hit home, why are you building it? We make products so we can announce them, so that we could show off, unless we're giving it to ourselves. But if we're making the product for other people, then we have to focus on the outside in.
That analytics aspect is something I don't take advantage of, unfortunately. But you make a great point. Like something like a blog about what you're developing, could give you a lot of insight if people are even interested in it to begin with, if that's your go-to.
But also yourself. If sometimes you got in your head, you're like, I've got to make a marketplace. How do I make a marketplace? Coding. I have to code. I'm coding. Okay, I have to optimize. Okay, then you're done. Or you imagine that you'll be done at some point. You're like, okay, great. I will be done this. I will finish this task.
I'll finish it.
Okay, great. Now I have to get people to use this.
I guess for the market in particular, my own articulation at the beginning was, I have this smart contract, and there was aspects of it where I was like, I feel like people are going to disagree with some of these rules. They're just not going to like them. It would be nice if I kind of gave someone the freedom to like spin up their own instance, but in a way where it's still attached to the original, because, I can't go back and change it. So then I kind of went down this road of, okay, well, it could be like a market, but one where, if someone disagrees with certain rules that I put into it, then they can just simply go spin up their own and then have their own rules. But at a surface level, I guess, my rules enforce over their rules, if that makes sense.
I know a little bit about your application, and that's a little rough because that design decision about your application is critical. Whether you're going to have not a monolithic, whether you're going to have one template or you're going to allow subordinate templates or something, just in your product, that's really important. And it's a really expensive thing for you to implement, right? So
yeah,
you got to test that. You do not want to make the wrong decision. That's, what's this called? Make undoable decisions quickly, make not undoable decisions slowly. That is something that is a not undoable decision.
Yeah, there's truth to that.
But also you have a cool product, so I would love to see you start selling it. I'd even love to see you start selling it Web 2-wise.
Yeah, there's a site for it. I'm sure I've linked it before, and I've even brought it up in this. And I am using it. I am using it with my team. Like, we have projects. We want people to look at it. But, there's like a lot of different medias involved with the project. And so we can't, we use a mix of different sites to kind of say, hey, here's this part of the project, here's that part of the project. And then this site basically glues all of it together. We
Yeah.
even have one project up right now, and it looks really nice. Open a new tab, go to qmossy.com. It should be there. Like the
Oh yeah, because we thought it was Chinese for chumos.
if you go down, we have like a few projects in so far. So the bad USB one is mine, and yeah, that one is the mini incubator is a project one of my friends is working on that I helped with him a long time ago. The mini incubator one actually does a really good job at showing you all the different plugins and how we're like, I guess, showcasing different medias. So I would click on that one, yeah. And then the mini incubator one, like it has like 3D models and everything. Mine has like one 3D model, the bad USB one. It's like all right, but definitely the mini incubator one. That one is probably the cooler one we have. We have other projects too. We just haven't released all of them yet. And the idea is like we could use something like NFTs to do version tracking of the changes that go into the project. And it's kind of like GitHub sponsors. If someone wants to sponsor our changes to the projects as we go on, then so be it. They can definitely do that. It's kind of like a thank you. But most of the work that we do is all, how do I say this? It's mostly open source. You could still have closed source projects. You could definitely list closed source things, but it's mostly around open source things. But it's more than just code. Like I said, like GitHub is perfect for version tracking code changes. But like if I have like 3D models and stuff like that I also want to version track, or videos, or just anything that you could think of, it becomes more complicated. And so,
well, GitHub does allow you to show. They've got CSV, TSV viewers. They have 3D viewers in there, but not in their timeline. This is more of a story.
Yeah. Correct. We can version track all this. And personally, the aspect of this that I like, and it's kind of the whole reason why we even started this site, is there's a lot of times like when we have content and we upload it on a certain site, that site decides to like ban our content. Mm-hmm. Like I remember I had like this video on YouTube. It was just showcasing like some security stuff, and like it got banned because apparently I was showcasing malware, and I guess YouTube hates that. It's like stuff like that I want to avoid. I just want something where, I could upload stuff, talk about projects, and it's not affected by one site's terms of condition.
I love the logo. I don't like that there's two different logos, but the one at the top.
Yeah, I agree. It's funny you said that. This week we were literally going over logo designs, trying to see if we could like make a standardized one. Yeah.
I mean, this is killer. I don't even know. Yep. I mean, I hope it means something. I hope the purple and I hope the flowing represents a thing. But this logo's killer. It's about 18% too large. But it is a beautiful logo. I know how hard it is to pick fonts.
Yep. It's somewhat easier now with the new Bing AI generator. We've been using that to make a lot of different concepts. So kind of like review, like go over, see if we like something. It's good for giving ideas, stuff like that.
Yeah, this is a beautiful site. I can't wait for it to be the Kickstarter of like, that's the Kickstarter, right? But you still need to go after your Kickstart, right?
Yeah.
This is the long haul. I really appreciate GitHub, helping to sponsor projects. And I'm happy about Open Collective, which is kind of a special tax thing for a lot of projects. Happy about GNU, the way they steward, not the way any of their ideas. But this fits into that. This is community backing. I think there's a huge opportunity for money and open source in ways that people just don't even get yet.
Agreed. Absolutely.
I mean, every one of these could be a tweet, right? There should be a time for each one of these. There should be a timestamp. Each one of these should be clickable so that when you click it, like when you have a blog, right? When you put your mouse over it, you get one of these things. You get the link button, you click it, and it...
Oh, the anchors? Yeah, that's a really good... I didn't even think of that.
So like each one of these is basically a level 2 heading. So you click it, and then it jumps to the top. Or when you mouse over it, it tells you the exact time, or you just put the time there. I think it's probably appropriate to put the time here because there's just the published here, and unless all these things were published at the same time.
We do store the timestamps, but it's not visible like that. There's definitely like little bugs to fix in regards to that, but
what I was saying is that like you are the block here, and these I'm assuming that these are the nuggets, right?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying here, and those are fantastic ideas. I will look into incorporating those, especially the anchor one. That one, I'm surprised we don't have that.
I'm surprised Bing didn't do that. That's one of the sad things about Twitter. It's just like it's unfortunate that you put so much out there and it kind of gets lost after a couple days.
Yeah, especially Twitter in particular. I've noticed the search capability has gotten a lot worse.
But also, like what I'm trying to say is like, if I care about this project and I want to scroll, I just want to see what you've been working on. I don't want to see all of your retweets or all of your other crap. I just want to see this.
So I think there's a hot take to make in the last 5 minutes. I just added some links to Doc.
Nice. Tether freezes crypto linked to terrorism and warfare in Israel and Ukraine. Okay, so who determines what is terrorism or warfare and who told them to? I hate this article. So I think, Tether operating clearly as a bank here. First of all, this should be on the Tether blog. When you're a crypto project and you're going to rug pull some people, or AKA freeze their assets, then that should be listed on your news page. So it is on their blog. Okay, so if you're somebody who has Tether and you steal it and then you just put it in Compound, then Tether really can't control that because you can just use your Compound tokens and then transfer those to somebody and they can yank those out. I don't know how quickly Tether can block addresses, but it seems, I'm not sure how effective that is. So this was out this week, so thanks for sharing, Dan. I would like it to be a lot more specific. I don't want to hear that they were working with 33 countries. I want to hear that they received actionable notices from judges that are legally enforceable in 33 countries. If I'm a cop in a local city in the United States, are they going to call that as working with the United States government? I would rather them, I want to see more authoritative citations here because they're taking people's money, right? So I would like to see pasting here of, these court writs. Dan, what do you think? What's your hot take?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you can't tell if it's proactive or if it's like the CIA just tapped them on the shoulder, or like you said, there are actual official court orders. But given the speed, I would imagine that's not the case. That's probably not what's going on.
Yeah. And also, unfortunately, I think Tether here is in a position to profit. When they freeze the money, they don't just burn the dollars. They keep earning interest on it. They're kind of winning here a little bit. But then again, wars are pretty rare, and this is only $1 million, and the interest on $1 million is only $5K a month, not even. So, I mean, it's not big money here. I'm always thinking like a hacker, right? I'm like, okay, what's in it for them? How are they profiting? Who are they scamming? Are people getting scammed that are unable to speak for themselves?
Well, also this is setting a precedent. So like all the whatever machinery that was used to do this, maybe a lot of people believe it's the right thing to do in this current moment with these current accounts, but that machinery will exist, do this sort of thing in other cases where there might not be as much, or as broad of support for those actions. If a year later something like this happens and it's a bunch of people that are just in the wrong political party or the wrong community organization that is not even associated with actual terrorism, then that's when it becomes scary.
Yeah. We had Dirty Bit on the phone here before, and we were talking about how the government officially designates people. It's the Specially Designated Nationals list. Do you remember how many specially designated nationals are actually on the list from the U.S. Treasury? How many crypto accounts are actually blocked?
Was it 1,000?
It's like 150. Yeah, it's nothing. And so they're blocking money for 33 people. So obviously, whatever's going on here is moving a lot faster than the official way that the U.S. Treasury Department censures people.
But I guess also I can understand the argument that for important things that are fast moving, waiting for all the official processes doesn't work. And I think a lot of people are unhappy with how slow it would be to go through the official processes.
Yeah.
But I think, like you said, there's probably a middle ground of transparency that could be happening that isn't. And that's the bad precedent.
Yeah. The fact that this blog post doesn't say it the right. Temporary. This is temporary. That's what we want to, we're going to reevaluate this in 60 days. And if a court XYZ, then YX. They don't need to have the answers today.
There was a news article. I don't know if you saw it, Dan. It was from like a few days ago about funds moving out of a sanctioned Russian crypto exchange to fund the same exact group. I wonder if this is like related to that. I forgot what the group is called. Garantex. That's what it's called.
I haven't heard of that one.
Cool. Good find.
Yeah, and ongoing. We'll probably see more and more of this.